Welcome.
And 4M9, the Queen and Palpatine. So this one, it's very, very short indeed. There are a few things that we can divide and conquer with. So the first thing is two-part instrumental counterpoint using two different sorts of scale. One which is just an unordered chromatic set, the other one which is an octatonic set with an extra errant note. The next is using hexatonic chords, or chords rather derived from the hexatonic set, to give us some interesting gnarliness. Then using an octatonic set, or in fact two octatonic sets, which seem to combine well with the hexatonic set and mix with it, and then it shifts tonal center from C sharp into C minor, with another subset of a hexatonic set with this chord here, minor chord with a flat 6. And then, just for good measure, we've got some nice synth notes which are taken from the Hungarian minor in C, which is just the same as the harmonic minor, but with a raised fourth. There we go. So let's have a look at that and start from the beginning. Here we go. And I'm just going to stop it there for the time being. So we start off with the violas at this point. Really nice, rich, starting on the G string and then going into the C string quite quickly. And same really with the cellos. So what's going on here is there's a loose canon. So it's imitative counterpoint where the cello line is the same as the viola line, but a major ninth below, actually a major second below with an octave, and then it shifts to an augmented fourth below the line, which is quite difficult to see. So if you sort of think about the viola here, and then here in the viola and the cello in the following bar, like that. So there we have a sort of bit of imitation at that point, in fact, sort of canonic, really. So what notes is he using and why? Well, he's got some octatonic scale notes here, and then he's put in, like he likes to do, an extra pitch which is not part of the set that you would expect. So those are the normal notes we have: C sharp, D, E, F, G, G sharp or A flat, B flat. So he's put in an extra note here, which is an interesting one because you get almost chromaticism, but just not quite. And it just gives it a little bit of spiciness that it wouldn't otherwise have. In the cello, though, it's a full chromatic set, which is quite remarkable considering the fact that two of the bars are actually replicated from the previous the previous two bars. So it's an achievement to do, combining two different things where one of them is fully chromatic. But the pitch sort of tessitura here is sort of quite small. So, you know, we're going only from a G up to a C sharp. So all of those notes in between and then nothing else. So he's actually missing out quite a lot of pitches at this point, just in this bit. I guess it's an augmented fourth. So it's an interesting one, but you know, do note the fact that a lot of the notes are not necessarily dissonant with each other. So here, although it says A flat and E natural, really we could consider that a G sharp and an E, which would be a 6 and then a 5th and then a 3rd. So that's okay. Then we've got two dissonances, 2/4, then a third, 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 seventh, seventh, third, sixth, sixth. So there's limited amounts of dissonance in terms of the vertical direction of what we've got, but it sounds very dissonant because of the fact everything is sort of rather chromatic, but no more so than Bach, to be honest. The only difference is that there are 2/4 in a row and 2/7 in a row, which would be rare. So an interesting one, and also a good exercise in counterpoint writing. If you're trying to do this just with cello and viola, interesting, look at the movement of the viola here, and then the cello allows space, so it's got longer note values. And then here where we have a dot, we also have shorter note values to fill up the space. And when there's a tie, we have a percussed note, that B flat in the cello. Without it, it just does that in a very passive sound. So we need the articulation of that note, or the percussiveness of that note, sounding for it to actually work. There we go. Then we've got a little bit of rhythmic imitation here. It's not quite the same interval relationship, but it looks very, very similar in terms of inversion, but it's not quite, in fact. But there we go. So moving on, let's listen to it. Real genius. It's just a sort of gliding weirdness, basically, isn't it? There's a sort of, it's got a wide gap. So we got C sharps in the double bass at this point with some synth strings just to fill up the extra octave. So it seems like a sort of C sharp minor chord, which it is. And all of those are in close position with horns and trombones at this point, marked grave. And then here we've got sort of half an A minor. So we got C sharp minor and A minor. So it sounds really discordant because of the C against the C sharp at this point. It's less obtrusive because it becomes a seventh rather than a minor ninth, which would be a lot more harsh. And given the option, John Williams tends to make them sevenths rather than ninths. Not always, but a lot of the time he does. So it's not too unpleasant. So it sounds sort of, let's say, right in inverted commas. So these notes are taken from a hexatonic set. So if you imagine the notes in red are part of the A minor chord, here we've got C sharp, E and G sharp. I haven't actually marked them in, but you can. I still think you can clearly see them. That's C sharp minor. And we just got those, the A and the E, sorry, the A and the C, the two sort of other notes. But it's interesting how he inverts those into a sixth, sort of a third. And then all of these notes, all of the notes, with the exception of just that one note and this little thing called an échappé or an escape tone, they're all taken from that sixth note or hexatonic set called 620. Really interesting. And then a little bit later on, he then combines two octatonic sets. So it's an 0134 in terms of the pattern 0123 0134, which is an octatonic pattern. And there are two of them. So the previous note is a C natural, C sharp here, D sharp. There we go. You could argue that the A flat is, I guess, errant in this sort of octatonic set, but it's also present in this set as well. And then we just have full chromaticism, which then leads into a C minor tonal center shift from C sharp, semitonal shift down to C minor with a classic doubled root. In this case, it's an interesting case of note doubling. We've got clarinet 1 joining trombone 1 and bassoon, bass clarinet and trombone 2 taking the C, bassoon 2 and trombone 3, and then tuba and contra taking the low C. Then we've got a nice little harp bit, which is just doing that C minor with the 6 as well, and then a Hungarian minor like that as well. It's interesting that I'm sure in the recording, because of the horns sort of already doing that, they probably thought, well, let's just delay that because otherwise it sounds a bit strange. So they delay the A flat and the G after that. But a nice little cue. It's very, very short, but I think it gives you, you know, for those who are short on time, how many bars is it? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 bars of interesting little bits. So just to recap, a little bit of sort of chromatic counterpoint at the beginning, then going to a part of a hexatonic set, using octatonic transition notes so that 2 of the notes are in common, the C sharp and E, with a hexatonic set that we've already got. And then use sparingly. Note that there's no huge melody going on. It's just long note values, just crotchets, just minims, the odd quaver, and then goes to a C minor chord with a minor 6, and then a little bit of Hungarian F sharp flavour for good measure. Hope you've enjoyed that, and there'll be much more next time I see you.